was at the airport, waiting for my flight. It was late at night, and the airport was quiet. I sat in a chair, looking around. The lights flickered, making the place feel eerie. People were there, but it seemed like something was off. As I waited, I heard strange noises. Creaks and whispers echoed through the empty halls. I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But then, I saw a shadow moving in the corner of my eye. I turned, but there was no one there. Feeling uneasy, I decided to walk around to shake off the weird feeling. As I strolled through the dimly lit corridors, I noticed that the airport looked different at night. The shops were closed, and the gates seemed abandoned. The only sound was the echo of my footsteps. I reached my gate and sat down, trying to calm my nerves. The airport was supposed to be a busy place, but it felt like a ghost town. I looked around, and that's when I saw a figure standing at the end of the hallway. It was a tall, shadowy silhouette. I squinted my eyes, trying to see who it was, but the figure vanished. I felt a chill down my spine. Maybe it was just a janitor or another passenger. I tried to dismiss it, but the strange occurrences continued. The announcements over the intercom sounded distorted, like someone was speaking from another world. I couldn't understand what they were saying. I looked at the departure board, and the flight information kept changing randomly. I decided to ask someone for help, but when I approached a security guard, he stared at me with empty eyes and didn't respond. It was as if he couldn't see or hear me. I stepped back, confused and scared. I walked back to my seat, and that's when I noticed the time on my phone. It was stuck at midnight. No matter how many times I refreshed it, the time remained the same. I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. As I sat there, the air became heavy, and a sense of dread lingered. I looked out the window, but instead of the usual view of planes and runways, I saw a thick fog surrounding the airport. It was so dense that I couldn't see beyond a few feet. I decided to leave the gate and find someone who could explain what was happening. As I walked through the foggy airport, I heard whispers that seemed to come from all directions. They were unintelligible, but the tone was unsettling. I stumbled upon an old departures board that displayed destinations I'd never heard of. The names seemed otherworldly. I felt disoriented, like I was in a place that didn't belong to our reality. I tried to find an exit, but the hallways seemed to stretch endlessly. Every turn led to more corridors, and the fog outside the windows obscured any landmarks. Panic set in as I realized I was lost in this strange and surreal airport. I ran, desperately searching for an exit, but the surroundings remained the same. The whispers grew louder, and the shadows seemed to dance around me. I felt a presence, as if something unseen was watching. Exhausted and terrified, I collapsed onto a bench. The fog pressed against the windows and the distorted announcements continued. I closed my eyes, hoping it was all a nightmare. When I opened them again, the airport had returned to normal. The lights were bright, and people bustled around. The departure board displayed familiar destinations, and the fog outside was gone. I checked the time on my phone, and it showed the current hour. It was as if nothing had happened. Bewildered, I stood up, unsure if I had imagined the entire ordeal. The memory of the night I experienced something inexplicable at the airport. I boarded my flight, eager to leave that unsettling place behind. As the plane took off, I looked out the window, half expecting to see the mysterious fog again. But the airport below was just like any other, disappearing into the distance as I left that strange and haunting night behind. I went to the airport to catch a flight. The airport was big, with lots of people rushing around. Before my flight, I needed to use the restroom. I found one near my gate. Inside, it was quiet. The lights flickered a bit, making the room feel eerie. I went into a stall and closed the door. As I sat down, I heard a strange sound, like someone whispering. It gave me chills, but I tried to ignore it. Suddenly, the lights went out. It was pitch dark. I couldn't see anything. I fumbled for my phone in my pocket and turned on the flashlight. The restroom looked different in the dim light. The air felt heavy. I finished up quickly and opened the stall door. That's when I saw someone in the mirror. It wasn't a reflection of me. It was a shadowy figure standing behind me. I froze, staring at it in shock. It felt like time stood still. I turned around, but there was no one there. I shook my head, thinking it was just my imagination. I washed my hands and hurried out of the restroom. As I walked back to the gate, the lights flickered again. This time, I heard footsteps behind me. I glanced back, but there was no one there. I started to feel uneasy, like someone was watching me. When I reached the gate, I sat down, trying to shake off the strange feeling. The boarding announcement came, and we all lined up to get on the plane. I couldn't forget about the weird experience in the restroom, but I tried to focus on my journey. During the flight, I couldn't help but think about what happened. The shadowy figure, the whispering, and the flickering lights haunted my thoughts. I wondered if I was the only one who had experienced it. After landing, I rushed to get my luggage and head out of the airport. I wanted to leave that weird restroom behind. But as I walked towards the exit, I noticed the restroom sign. Something made me stop and look at it. I hesitated, then decided to go back in. I thought maybe I could figure out what happened. The restroom looked normal now, with bright lights and no strange sounds. I went to the same stall, half expecting something to happen. Everything seemed fine until I heard the whispering again. It was faint, but it sent shivers down my spine. I quickly finished and left the restroom. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off in there. Days passed, but the strange experience stayed with me. I couldn't forget the shadowy figure and the eerie whispers. I started researching the airport, hoping to find some answers. I discovered that the airport had a long history, and there were rumors about strange happenings in the restroom. Some people claimed to have seen shadows, heard whispers, and felt a chilling presence. It sent a shiver down my spine to know that I wasn't the only one. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to return to the airport. I wanted to see if the restroom still had that eerie atmosphere. As I entered, the lights flickered again. The air felt heavy, just like before. I went into the same stall, and the whispers started again. This time, they were clearer. I couldn't make out the words, but the sound sent chills down my spine. I finished quickly and left, determined to put the strange experience behind me. But as I walked away, I felt a cold breeze, even though the airport was warm. I turned around, and for a moment, I thought I saw a shadowy figure. It disappeared in an instant, leaving me with a sense of unease. I decided to share my experience with airport staff. They listened attentively, and some nodded as if they had heard similar stories. They promised to look into it, but I wondered if anything could be done to stop the strange occurrences in that restroom. Time passed, and I couldn't forget the haunted airport restroom. Every time I passed by, I felt a chill. The whispers, the flickering lights, and the shadowy figure haunted my memories. It made me wonder if there was something beyond our understanding in that seemingly ordinary place. To this day, I avoid that restroom whenever I travel through that airport. The strange experience taught me that sometimes, even in the most ordinary places, there can be something unexplainable and eerie. The airport restroom, with its flickering lights and chilling whispers, remains a memory that I can't quite forget. I was at the airport, waiting for my flight. It was late and the place was almost empty. The dim lights flickered overhead, making everything feel eerie. I tried to focus on my book, but a strange feeling crept over me. As I walked down the deserted hallways, I noticed that the usual airport sounds were muted. It was as if the place was holding its breath. I tried to shake off the uneasy feeling, thinking it was just my imagination. I reached my gate and sat down. The only other person there was a janitor, quietly mopping the floor. The air seemed heavy, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I glanced at the departure board, and that's when I noticed it. My flight was delayed. I sighed and looked around. The janitor had disappeared, leaving the corridor empty. The silence was unnerving. I decided to take a walk, hoping it would distract me. As I strolled through the empty hallways, I heard faint whispers. It was as if the walls were talking, but I couldn't make out the words. I quickened my pace, feeling a chill run down my spine. The airport, which had once felt familiar, now seemed like a different place. I tried to find my way back to the gate, but the corridors twisted and turned, disorienting me. Panic set in as I realized I was lost. I stumbled upon a deserted, waiting area. The seats were tattered, and an old newspaper lay on the ground. The headlines spoke of a mysterious event at the airport years ago. The details were unclear, but it sent shivers down my spine. I wondered if what I was experiencing was connected to that eerie past. As I continued my search for the gate, the whispers grew louder. I could almost make out the words, voices of people who weren't there. Fear gnawed at me, but I pressed on. The airport, once a place of hustle and bustle, now felt like a haunted maze. I finally spotted my gate in the distance. Relieved, I hurried towards it. But as I approached, the departure board flickered, and the gate number changed. Confused, I checked my ticket. It matched the new gate. I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. The new gate led me to a secluded part of the airport. The air grew colder, and the whispers turned into eerie laughter. I hesitated, but continued, driven by the need to escape this unsettling place. The corridor seemed endless, with doors lining both sides. I tried a few, but they were all locked. In the distance, I saw a figure, a shadowy silhouette that seemed to be watching me. Fear gripped me, but I couldn't turn back. The figure beckoned me towards an unmarked door. I hesitated but opened it, hoping it would lead me out. Instead, I found myself in a dimly lit room. The air was heavy with a strange energy. In the center of the room was an old suitcase. It looked out of place, like a relic from another time. As I approached it, the whispers grew louder, and the laughter more menacing. I opened the suitcase and found old photographs, each one telling a story of people who had passed through this haunted airport. Their faces looked pained, trapped in a timeless loop. I felt a cold hand on my shoulder, and when I turned around, the shadowy figure stood before me. It spoke in hushed tones, recounting tales of passengers who had vanished into the airport's dark history. I felt a chill as I realized I was now part of that story. The figure pointed to a door, urging me to leave before it was too late. I rushed towards the exit, my heart pounding. The whispers and laughter echoed in the corridor as I ran. The airport seemed to resist my escape, as if it didn't want to let me go. Finally, I burst through the doors into the night. The cool air outside was a welcome relief. I looked back at the airport, now looming in the darkness. The whispers faded, and the laughter ceased. I stumbled away, grateful to leave that haunted place behind. To this day, I can't forget the horror I experienced at the airport. The mysterious past, the whispers, and the shadowy figure. It all felt like a nightmare. I've never been able to explain what happened, but one thing is for sure. That airport holds secrets that the living and the departed share in the silent corridors of its haunted history.
Hey there, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe below for more awesome content. Join us and let's make this community even better together. See you in the next video.